Bon or Bar paragraph N is a Tibetan religious tradition or sect, being distinct from Buddhist ones in its particular myths, although many of its teachings, terminology and rituals resemble Tibetan Buddhism. It arose in the 11th century and established its scriptures mainly from termas and visions by Terma paragraph NS such as Loden Nyingpo. Though Bon terma contain myths of Bon existing before the introduction of Buddhism in Tibet, in truth the old religion was a new religion. Definitions of Bon, as Bon only arose in the 11th century through the work of tertöns, Sambanskake states it is improper to refer to the pre-Buddhist religion of Tibet as Bon. Though some people call the old pre-Buddhist religion of Tibet a Bon a unregistered trademark, it is unlikely that before Buddhism the Tibetans had a clear sense of practicing a religion as such, or a specific name for these practices. In fact, the Bonpo religion only started to take shape alongside the revival of Buddhism in the 11th century. And when the scriptures of the Bonpo started to appear in Tibet, it was mainly through the work of tertöns. History Foundation 3 Bon scriptures, Mdo Das, Gze Umig, and Gzibrjid relate the mythos of Tompa Shnrub Miwush. The Bonpas regard the first two as terma rediscovered around the 11th century and the last as Nyan Brgyud dictated by Loden Nyingpo, who lived in the 14th century. In the 14th century, Loden Nyingpo revealed a terma known as the Brilliance, which contained the story of Tompa Shnrub. He was not the first Bonpo Terma paragraph N, but his terma became one of the definitive scriptures of Bon religion. It states that Shnrub established the Bon religion while searching for a horse stolen by a demon. Tradition also tells that he was born in the land of Targsig Olmolungring, which is traditionally identified as Mount Yangdrungai Zeg, possibly Mount Kailash, in western Tibet. Due to the sacredness of Targsig Olmolungting and Mount Kailash, the Bonpo regard both the swastika and the number 9 as auspicious and as of great significance. Tompa Shnrub Miwush visited Kongpo and found people whose practice involved spiritual appeasement with animal sacrifice. He taught them to substitute offerings with symbolic animal forms made from barley flour. He only taught according to the student's capability with lower shamanic vehicles to prepare. Until with prayer, diligence, devotion and application they could incarnate to achieve Sutra, Tantra and Dzogchen. Bon teachings feature 9 vehicles, which are pathway teaching categories with distinct characteristics, views, practices and results. Medicine, astrology, and divination are in the lower vehicles. Then Sutra and Tantra, with Dzogchen great perfection being the highest. Traditionally, the 9 vehicles are taught in 3 versions, as central, northern and southern treasures. The central treasure is closest to Nyingma Nyao's teaching and the northern treasure is lost. Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche elaborated the southern treasure with shamanism. A cavern of treasures A cavern of treasures is a Bon terma uncovered by Shimkan Luga in the early 11th century. Martin identifies the importance of this scripture for studies of the Zhangzhung language. For students of Tibetan culture in general, the Mzodphug is one of the most intriguing of all Bon scriptures, since it is the only lengthy bilingual work in Zhangzhung and Tibetan. 18th century The Dzongar people invaded Tibet in 1717 and deposed a pretender to the position of Dalai Lama who had been promoted by Lhazang, the titular king of Tibet. This met with widespread approval. However, they soon began to loot the holy places of Lhasa, which brought a swift response from the Kangxi emperor in 1718, but his military expedition was annihilated by the Dzongars not far from Lhasa. Many Nyingmapas and Bonpas were executed and Tibetans visiting Dzongar officials were forced to stick their tongues out so that Dzongars could tell if the person recited constant mantras, which was said to make the tongue black or brown. This allowed them to pick the Nyingmapas and Bonpas, who recited many magic mantras. A habit of sticking one's tongue out as a mark of respect on greeting someone has remained a Tibetan custom into modern times. 19th century In the 19th century, Shah Zatashi Gyaltsen, a Bon master whose collected writings comprise 18 volumes significantly rejuvenated the tradition. his disciple Kagyu Kyungtrul Jigme Namkhor trained many practitioners to be learned in not only the Bon religion, but in all Tibetan schools. According to the Bonpo, 18 enlightened entities will manifest in this eon, and Tar paragraph Npa Shnrab Mywosh, the founder of Bon, is considered the enlightened Buddha of this age. The 33rd lineage holder of Menri Monastery, Menri Trazin Lungtog Tenpe Nyima and Lopa paragraph N Tenzin Namdik are important current lineage holders of Bon. More than 300 Bon monasteries had been established in Tibet prior to Chinese annexation. Of these, Menri Monastery and Shurishing Yungdringdung Drakling Monastery were the two principal monastic universities for the study and practice of Bon knowledge and science arts. Geography. Ethnic Tibet is not confined culturally to the Tibet Autonomous Region. The broader area of ethnic Tibet also includes, to the east, parts of the Chinese provinces of Sichuan, Qinghai, Gansu and Yunnan. To the west, the Indian regions of Ladakh, Lahore and Spiti and the Baltistan region of Pakistan. The extreme northwest of Assam. And to the south, Bhutan, Sikkim, and parts of northern Nepal, such as Mustang and Dolpo, and the regions in northeastern Nepal inhabited by Sherpa and Tamang peoples. Gods. Bonpas cultivate household gods in addition to other deities. Traditionally in Tibet, divine presences or deities would be incorporated into the very construction of the house, making it in effect a castle against the malevolent forces outside it. The average Tibetan house would have a number of houses or seats for the male god that protects the house. Every day, the man of the house would invoke this god and burn juniper wood and leaves to placate him. In addition, the woman of the house would also have a protecting deity whose seat could be found within the kitchen, usually at the top of the pole that supported the roof. Another set of deities are the White Old Man, a sky god, and his consort. They are known by a few different names, such as the Gilpo Pahor, called King Pahor. Pahor is featured as a protecting deity of Songzhuang, the center of the Bon religion. Reportedly, Pahor is related to celestial heavens and the sky in general. In early Buddhist times, Pahor transmogrified into a shamanic bird to adapt to the bird motifs of shamanism. Pahera Euro unregistered trademark S consort is a female deity known by one of her names as Da 1/4 Za Minka. Present situation. According to a recent Chinese census, an estimated 10% of Tibetans follow Bon. When Tibet was formally recognized as part of the PRC, there were approximately 300 Bon monasteries in Tibet and the rest of Western China. According to a recent survey, there are 264 active Bon monasteries, convents, and hermitages. The present spiritual head of the Bon is Lungtok Tenpa Nyima, the 33rd abbot of Menri Monastery, who now presides over Pal Shen Ten Menri Ling in Dolanji in Himachal Pradesh, India, for the abbacy of which monastery he was selected in 1969. A number of Bon establishments also exist in Nepal. Triton Norbert's Bonpo Monastery is one on the western outskirts of Kathmandu. Bon's leading monastery is the refounded Menri Monastery in Dolanji, Himachal Pradesh, India. Many Bon elements are in the Hangi religion of the Pumi people. Recognition. Lobsang Yesh, recognized as the fifth Panchen Lama by the fifth Dalai Lama, was a member of the Dra family, an important family of the Bon religion. Under Losang Gyatso, Bon became respected both philosophically and politically. However, the Bonpo remained stigmatized and marginalized until 1977, when they sent representatives to Dharamsala and the 14th Dalai Lama, who advised the Parliament of the Central Tibetan Administration to accept Bon members. Since then, Bon has had official recognition of his status as a religious group, with the same rights as the Buddhist schools. This was restated in 1987 by the Dalai Lama, who also forbade discrimination against the Bonpas, stating that it was both undemocratic and self-defeating. He even donned Bon ritual paraphernalia, emphasizing the religious equality of the Bon faith. However, Tibetans still differentiate between Bon and Buddhism, referring to members of the Nyingma, Shakya, Kagyu and Gelug schools as Nangpa, meaning insiders, but to practitioners of Bon as Bonpo, or even Chaipa. See also. Footnotes. References: Kami, Sampton G. A General Introduction to the History and Doctrines of Bon. Memoirs of the Research Department of the Toyo Bunko, No. 33, pages 171–218. Tokyo. Further reading, Allon, Charles. The Search for Shangri-La, A Journey into Tibetan History. Little, Brown and Company. Reprint, Abacus, London. 2000. ISBN 0-349-11142-1. Bormer, Christopher, Bon, Tibet Euro Unregistered Trademark S. Ancient Religion, Ilford, Wisdom, 2002. ISBN 974-974-524-011-7. Beleza, John Vincent G. Shenrab Maibo, His Life and Times According to Tibet Euro Unregistered Trademark S. Earliest Literary Sources. Review d'Art Euro Unregistered Trademark Etudes Tibet Copyright Tains No. October 19, 2010, pages 31 Euro 118. Ermakov, Dmitry. BN cubed and bar paragraph N, Ancient Shamanic Traditions of Siberia and Tibet in their relation to the teachings of a Central Asian Buddha, Kathmandu, Vara Publications, 2008. Hummel, C. Eckbert 1962 PEHAR. East and West 13, 4, 313–316, Jinpa, Jellic, Ramble, Charles, and Dunham, V. Carroll, Sacred Landscape and Pilgrimage in Tibet, In Search of the Lost Kingdom of Bon, New York and London, Abbeville, 2005. ISBN 0-7892-0856-3, Kind, Marietta, The Bon Landscape of Dolpo. Pilgrimages, Monasteries, Biographies and the Emergence of Bon. Bern 2012, ISBN 978-3-0343-0690-4. Lhajayal, Don Drup, al. A Survey of Bonpo Monasteries and Temples in Tibet and the Himalaya. Osaka 2003, ISBN 4901906100. Martin, Dean Olmo Lungring, The Original Holy Place. In Sacred Spaces and Powerful Places in Tibetan Culture, a collection of essays. Edited by Tony Huber, pages 125 Euro 153. The Library of Tibetan Works and Archives, Dharamsala, HP, India. ISBN 81-86470-22-0. Norbu, Namkhai 1995. Drung, Dew and Bar Paragraph N, Narrations, Symbolic Languages in the Bar Paragraph N Tradition in Ancient Tibet. Translated from Tibetan into Italian, edited and annotated by Adriano Clement. Translated from Italian into English by Andrew Lukianovic. Library of Tibetan Works and Archives, Dharamsala, HP, India. ISBN 81-85102-93-7. Namdik, Yondzin Lopa Paragraph N Tenzin, Transc. And ed. Ermakova, C. and Ermakov, D. Masters of the Zhangtsung Mingyud, Pith Instructions from the Experiential Transmission of Bar Paragraph NPO Dzogchen. Pegg, Carol. In Eurasia Religious Contexts, Folk Religious Practices, Shamanism, Tantric Buddhist Practices. Oxford University Press. Samuel, Geoffrey. Civilized Shamans. Smithsonian Institution Press. http www.sharfamtrust.org Tibetan Unit 01 PDF, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche. Healing with Form, Energy, and Light. Ithaca, New York, Snow Lion Publications. ISBN 1-55939-176-6, Gar 1/4 NTHER, Herbert v. The Teachings of Padmasambhava Bava. Leiden, Netherlands, E. J. Brill. Hardcover. Shardsatashi Gyaltsen Heart Drops of Dharmakaya, Dzogchen Practice of the Bon Tradition. Ithaca, New York, Snow Lion. Rossi, D. The Philosophical View of the Great Perfection in the Tibetan Bon Religion. Ithaca, New York, Snow Lion. The book gives translations of Bon scriptures, the 12 Little Tantras, and the view which is like the lion's roar. Yungdzin Lopa paragraph N Tenzin Namdik Rinpoche. Heart Essence of the Khandro. Heritage Publishers. External links: Bon Foundation, Tibetan Bon Tradition in Belarus and Ukraine, Yungdrung Bon UK, Yungdrung Bar paragraph N, Ligmintra Institute, Studies and Other, PBS Secrets of Shangri-La, Quest for Sacred Caves, Siberian Bow and Tibetan Bon, Studies by Dmitry Ermakov, Picture of Bon Inscription, John Reynolds' website, including his Bonpo translation project, Naozai and other Hos/Bon religious texts, History of Buddhism and Bon in Tibet, Tibetan Bon tradition.